My twin stole my life, then she married the real monster by Sarah Lily. Chapter 1. She mimicked my appearance, settling demurely on my bed, waiting for my husband to join her. My parents also hoped she would share a harmonious and fruitful marriage with my husband, blessed with many children. My husband pushed open the door and my sister, her face flushed, stepped forward to help him. Undress. She had no idea that the man standing before her was far more terrifying than she could ever be. I floated in the air watching Caspian push open the door. His battle armor was stained with blood and dust. 2 months apart, he looked a little thinner, but also more imposing. My sister, Lyra Sterling, nervously clutched her dress, then steeled herself and rose from the bed, approaching Caspian. She spoke softly, "My lord, let me help you undress and bathe." Her voice was almost identical to mine. But our voices were originally different. 7 days earlier, when I was on the verge of death, she had told me, "Lyra, I went through hell to change my voice. Don't you think it sounds just like yours?" It certainly did, because even someone as cautious as Caspian hadn't realized that the wife before him was an imposter. Caspian removed his armor and opened his arms. Ilara's face flushed, and her soft, delicate hands reached for his belt. She wasn't naturally fair-skinned, but to match my complexion, she had taken whitening potions daily for 2 years and avoided the sun completely. In the end, she became as fair as I was. Not just my voice and skin, but she had perfectly mimicked my expressions and gestures too. She said she had spent 2 full years preparing. She said she was determined to have it all. Caspian looked down at her. "Did you change your perfume?" Ilara paused, then softly replied, "Yes, my lord, how do you find this scent?" Caspian frowned. "It's too strong, not as good as the one you used before, change it back." Ilara quickly said, "Yes, my lord." Caspian turned and walked towards the bath. Ilara eagerly followed, joy in her. She hadn't been discovered. Naturally, she was thrilled. I didn't want to go near the bath, because I knew what would happen next. Caspian had joined the military at 12 and had served for 13 years. His passion in the bedroom was intense, unlike any other. Though I didn't know if any women had served him during his 2 months away, whenever he returned after several days, it was always more than I could bear. He was never gentle with me, even nonchalantly saying, "Your parents sent you to please me, yet I see little effort from you." Later, Nanny Eliza advised me to be more accommodating, and I followed her words, which made him less brutal. But in truth, it was Ilara who was originally meant to marry Caspian. Yet that year, when Caspian returned to the capital with his army from the Northern Territories, 5 severed heads hung from his saddle. Though he told the king he had merely encountered and slain bandits along the way, everyone knew those 5 heads represented the 5 prominent families who had brought charges against his family years ago. Our Sterling family was one of them. The Sterling family had bled profusely due to those accusations, and Caspian was naturally out for revenge. So the 5 families offered rare jewels and stunning beauties, hoping to appease his fury. Ilara, my sister, was one of those stunning beauties. She feared she would be tortured to death by Caspian and begged our parents not to send her. Our parents doted on her, and ultimately they made me take Ilara's place and marry Caspian. Though Ilara and I were twins, a seer had prophesied at our birth that one of us would bring ruin to the Sterling family. So when I was born quiet and cried little, I was declared the ill, fated twin. They planned to drown me. My mother couldn't bear it and threatened her own life to save mine. I survived but was confined to the deepest, smallest courtyard in the Sterling estate, with only Nanny Eliza to care for me. From then on, outsiders only knew of Lyra Sterling, the eldest daughter cherished by the Sterling family, and were unaware of another daughter named Lyra Sterling, who grew like a weed in that tiny, secluded yard. The Sterling family never gave me a name. Lyra was given to me by Nanny Eliza. Nanny Eliza said that on the day she carried me to the small courtyard, the pear blossoms there were in full bloom, the most beautiful she had ever seen. So she named me Lyra. Lyra, a name that sounded so much like farewell in the old tongue. It perfectly foretold my brief life. Chapter 2. My soul drifted uncontrollably towards the bath. Caspian was already in the water, leaning against the edge of the tub, enveloped in the rising steam. His body was a map of jagged, crisscrossing old scars. Ilara's eyes darted away in fear when she saw them. She was scared. I found it laughable. She hadn't hesitated for a moment when she killed me. I floated to Caspian's side, waving my hand before his eyes. Though I had always been somewhat afraid of him, now I hoped he could sense me, or somehow realize Ilara wasn't me. My body was still buried in the Sterling family's garden, being devoured by ants and worms. If he would avenge me, out of respect for our 3 years together, I would be grateful. If he wouldn't, then digging up my body and burning it would also be a kindness. I preferred warm places. I didn't want to lie in darkness forever. Alas, he had no awareness of me. He simply rested with his eyes closed. Ilara composed herself, lightly bit her crimson lips and prepared to enter the bath. Caspian suddenly opened his eyes and looked at her. "Is there something wrong, my lord?" Ilara asked. Caspian said, "I heard that while I was away, you returned to the Sterling family home." Ilara immediately knelt. "Yes, my lord, my mother was ill, so I went back for a few days. Please forgive me." At the mention of my mother, a pang of pain still struck my heart. She had once threatened her own life to save me, yet when Ilara wanted to be with Caspian, she tricked me into returning home, allowing Ilara to poison me. I wanted to ask her why. Why she loved me yet killed me. After hearing Ilara's explanation, Caspian said, "Since your mother was ill, returning home is understandable." I froze. Caspian had never spoken such words to me before. On our wedding night, he had said that since my parents had sent me to him, I was his property, and from then on I could have no self. My life was his and my death was his. To endure his hardships, to bear his anger. That night he had gripped my face and coldly said, "Though you are indeed born to inspire pity, do not expect an ounce of it from me." He said it and he lived by it. In the 3 years of our marriage. Beyond our intimate moments, he spoke little to me, let alone allowed me to return home. "Thank you for your mercy, my lord," Ilara said softly, then rose and went to Caspian's side, picking up a towel to wipe his body. Suddenly, Caspian's aide's voice came from outside. "My lord, the king summons you urgently." "I understand." Caspian rose and left. Ilara stomped her foot, watching Caspian's retreating back, vexed that the king's summons had come at such an inconvenient time. Chapter 3. It's late at night, but Caspian still hadn't returned. Ilara was tired, telling Daisy to wake her when he arrived. I floated out of the room and sat on the rooftop, looking towards the king's palace. A few days ago, I heard the king was gravely ill. Caspian being summoned to the palace now meant he was likely being entrusted with a mission in this critical time. Once he was second only to the king, above all others, I wondered if he would then make a move against the Sterling family. In recent years, he had already been restless. The Sterling family and the other 4 families thought offering mountains of treasures and beautiful women would make him forget the past. But how could such things compare to the hatred in his heart? The day I returned to the Sterling family home, I had intended to warn them of Caspian's intentions. But before I could even open my mouth, they poisoned me. The moon gradually set, and a faint whiteness appeared in the east. The sun was about to rise, and I had to hurry back into the room. I was a ghost. I feared the sunlight. My favorite sunlight. It's late at night, but Caspian still hadn't returned. Ilara was tired, telling Daisy to wake her when he arrived. I floated out of the room and sat on the rooftop, looking towards the king's palace. A few days ago, I heard the king was gravely ill. Caspian being summoned to the palace now meant he was likely being entrusted with a mission in this critical time. Once he was second only to the king, above all others, I wondered if he would then make a move against the Sterling family. In recent years, he had already been restless. The Sterling family and the other 4 families thought offering mountains of treasures and beautiful women would make him forget the past. But how could such things compare to the hatred in his heart? The day I returned to the Sterling family home, I had intended to warn them of Caspian's intentions. But before I could even open my mouth, they poisoned me. The moon gradually set, and a faint whiteness appeared in the east. The sun was about to rise, and I had to hurry back into the room. I was a ghost. I feared the sunlight. My favorite sunlight. In the room, my mother accompanied Lyra while she rested, and my father took Caspian to a quiet pavilion for tea. "Mother, was that ill-fated twin really pregnant?" Lyra asked. My mother nodded. "Yes, last night we opened her up, she was indeed pregnant." Hearing this, a pain shot through my stomach, as if my soul too had been cut open. I hadn't realized I was truly pregnant. After taking so much medicine, I thought my body should no longer be able to bear children. Fortunately, we acted first. Otherwise, if she had started showing, I wouldn't have been able to pretend to be her, Lyra said, relieved. My mother nodded. "I saw how good my lord was to you today. You must seize this opportunity quickly. Once you have a child, even if my lord discovers something, for the sake of the child it will pass." Daisy also said, "I found someone and paid them handsomely to ask the palace doctor. The doctor said, 'My lord only asked about your health, nothing else.'" Lyra was a little unhappy. So he wasn't concerned about me, he was concerned about that ill-fated twin. My mother comforted her. Lyra is dead. From now on my lord is yours alone. Look, my lord even put a flower in your hair today. You will live a life of love, growing old together with many children and grandchildren." Lyra finally smiled a little. "Mother, I feel so happy now." My mother smiled back at her. "As long as my sweet daughter is happy." I couldn't watch anymore, I floated away. But where could I go? When I was alive, I had a family I couldn't return to, a husband's home I couldn't belong in. Even in death, I found no release. Chapter 4. I wanted to send Caspian a dream, to tell him I was buried beneath that pear tree in the Sterling family garden. But I didn't know how to enter his dreams. He was sleeping now, his brow furrowed as if in a nightmare. In the past 3 years I had seen him like this many times. Sometimes he would even cry in his sleep. When I tried to wake him, he would immediately snap awake and violently grip my neck. Only when he saw it was me would he release his hold. He had told me then not to touch him when he was asleep, because he would kill me. I was afraid for a long time, until later I heard that Caspian often faced assassination attempts during his years in the Northern Territories, which was why he never slept soundly. I thought about it, then gently cupped his face, pressing my forehead against his. Perhaps that would let me enter his dream. But it was still useless. A man as vigilant as him didn't even stir an eyelid. These past few days I had also tried to find other ghosts, but it seemed I was trapped by Lyra. Whenever I drifted too far from her, an invisible force would drag me back. I didn't know what else she had done to me. Was I doomed to be bound like this forever? Just as I looked up preparing to leave, Caspian suddenly embraced me and turned over. I had no physical form, yet he seemed to hold me. Then he woke up too. He looked at his empty arms, stunned for a moment, then his throat moved, his breathing slowly steadying from heavy to calm. Then I heard him say, "Caspian, don't let her fool you." In our marriage he had always been clear-headed. Even on those many nights when he seemed to want to etch me into his bones and blood. When the first light of dawn appeared, he would revert to Caspian, Lord of the North, and I would still be Lyra, the Sterling family's daughter. Another 2 days passed, and Caspian was finally due to return. Lyra meticulously adorned herself before the mirror. She admired her reflection. "Daisy, did my lord truly come here himself every time before without Lyra ever having to summon him?" Daisy replied, "Yes, lady." Lyra snorted disdainfully. Then she truly possessed remarkable cunning. I underestimated her before. Daisy then said, "Lady, perhaps you should change into something more modest. Lyra rarely wore such bright colors." Lyra's face hardened. "She is her and I am me. I'll wear whatever I like." "But..." Lyra turned and looked at her. "It's been 2 months. Lyra Sterling is turning into bare bones. What is there to worry about?" Earlier I thought she was clever, now she seemed so clueless." "No, she wasn't clueless. She was simply desperate to shed my shadow. No one wants to be someone else forever." Chapter 5. In the evening, Caspian finally arrived. Clad in a magnificent dark robe embroidered with golden dragons, his aura of battle was now softened with a touch of nobility. He was born of noble blood, but it had once been overshadowed by blood and vengeance. Lyra hurried to greet him, her eyes filled with admiration and infatuation. "My lord, you finally returned." Lyra nestled softly into Caspian's embrace. Caspian's powerful presence surged in that moment. A position of power, a beauty in his arms, no man would dislike it. He wrapped his arm around Lyra's slender waist, and the sharpness in his eyes gradually faded, replaced by a touch of tenderness. "Yes, I'm back," he murmured in response. The next moment, however, he frowned. "You still haven't changed your perfume." Lyra's eyes darted away. I did, my lord. After you said you disliked it that time, I never used it again." Caspian looked at her thoughtfully, then said nothing more. He shared a meal with her, then left. As soon as he was gone, Lyra ripped off all the scented sachets and jewelry from her clothes. "I've been using this pear blossom scent for so long, I practically reek of it, yet my lord still says the smell is different." "Daisy, are you lying to me? Do you want your family to die?" she demanded sharply. Daisy immediately knelt. "Your servant would never dare to lie to you, lady." "Then what is this about?" Daisy thought for a moment. "Perhaps it's not the pear blossom scent, but a natural scent. I've heard everyone has their own unique fragrance." Lyra retorted, "What pear blossom scent or natural fragrance? Doesn't he look at my face? I'm almost identical to that ill-fated twin now. I can barely recognize myself." Lyra didn't know, and neither did I, that Caspian had never mentioned any scent to me before. I floated over to Caspian's side. He sat at his desk, and in the flickering candlelight he gazed at the ink stone. Once he used to write here, and I would sit quietly beside him. Outside the window were graceful bamboo, and whenever the wind blew, the rustling of bamboo leaves mingled with the scent of ink, creating a unique tranquility, a moment I cherished. Now the wind still blew, the bamboo leaves still rustled, but I who used to sit beside him was gone. After a while Marcus arrived. Caspian asked him, "Did you find anything at the Sterling family estate?" Marcus replied, "Everything was normal. No irregularities were found. Did my lord sense something?" Caspian said coldly, "Her scent is still not hers." Marcus scratched his head. "My lord, are you referring to the lady? A change in scent isn't unusual, it's not like the person changed." Caspian's eyes moved. He looked at the fresh pears on the table, summoned a servant, and instructed them to tell Lyra that he wished to eat pear tarts tomorrow, and he wanted her to make a batch herself. I used to make pear tarts for him. Was he trying to distinguish her by taste? He was truly growing suspicious. I hadn't expected him to genuinely care, but perhaps he simply couldn't tolerate being deceived. It didn't matter, as long as my body could be unearthed. That pear tree in the courtyard had accompanied me for 17 years. It absorbed the essence of the sun, moon, rain and dew, growing and bearing fruits that sweetened my bitter life. It was so good, so pure, it raised me just like Nanny Eliza. It was also a mother, and it shouldn't be nourished by my decaying flesh and bones. Chapter 6. My father and mother soon arrived. They pretended to identify her, then adamantly claimed she was Lyra Sterling. They weren't lying either, so Caspian couldn't find a flaw. He didn't know the Sterling family had another daughter. That daughter, his wife of 3 years, was named Lyra Sterling. Marcus and the others also urged, "My lord, perhaps you are simply too tired recently. Please rest." Caspian slowly calmed down. He walked out. I followed him. He walked in the moonlight. This man, I found him somewhat unfathomable. A body's scent, whether one was healthy, a simple pear tart, these things alone couldn't truly prove someone had been replaced. Given his character, he shouldn't be so arbitrary. Yet he was so certain. Marcus caught up from behind, asking him, "My lord, what's truly troubling you?" Caspian stopped and looked at him. "Do you remember the dream I told you about?" Marcus thought for a moment. "My lord, you mean the one where you dreamt the lady and a child stood on the far bank of a river, and no matter what you called the lady, she wouldn't answer?" Caspian slowly nodded. "Marcus, she might already dead. It seems I've never been able to hold on to anything in this life. My parents, my siblings, and now her too. And perhaps there was even a child. What do you say a person lives for?" I floated before him. In his eyes I saw sadness. Marcus vehemently denied it. No, my lord, don't overthink. The lady is surely still the lady. As for a child, didn't the palace doctor say there would surely be news this year? Caspian said nothing more. He thought for a moment. Go immediately and investigate. Find out if Lady Sterling gave birth to a single child or twins back then. If it was twins, then everything makes sense. Calmed down, he quickly thought of this possibility. But only a few people knew my mother gave birth to twins. The seer had long since travelled the four corners of the world. Nanny Eliza had passed away, leaving only my parents and Daisy aware of the truth. And my parents were well prepared. They wouldn't easily leave behind loose ends. My legs also started to disappear, leaving only my long skirt floating around. Based on the previous rate of dissipation, I estimated I only had a few days left until I completely vanished. Caspian's investigation also changed direction. He had people search for unidentified female bodies. Whether alive or dead, he needed proof. He said if my body couldn't be found, it would prove I was still alive. I increasingly felt that he genuinely wanted to find me, not just to prove that he had been deceived by the Sterling family. I kept telling him I was buried beneath the pear tree, but he still couldn't hear me. I thought he was sometimes quite foolish. He clearly dreamt of me beneath the pear blossoms, so why wouldn't he go dig there at the Sterling family home? A few days later, many unidentified female bodies were found, along with numerous male bodies and even infants. He took Lyra to identify them. I wasn't among them. Passing by the bodies of the children, he paused. Most of those infants were girls. My lord, what's wrong? Marcus asked. He said softly, the child in my dream was a lovely little girl. I touched my lower abdomen. I felt nothing. I hadn't had any dreams. That sweet little girl, I feared I would never see her face. She came into existence without my knowing, and she died with me without my knowing. My 20 years, it seemed, I had held on to nothing. Chapter 7. As we prepared to leave, layers of dark clouds pressed down from above. A heavy storm was coming. I also became increasingly transparent. I thought I was about to dissipate. Thinking that my murderers were still at large, and I was to be buried in darkness forever, I still felt some regret. But I was powerless. I couldn't become a vengeful ghost to claim revenge as they did in stories. I had no magic. I couldn't even float far away. I didn't want to hide in Caspian's shadow anymore. I floated into the sky. I wanted to see the capital, this city I had longed to see properly but never could. The last time I was with Caspian before I died, I saw he was in a good mood. While styling his hair, I asked him if he could let me leave the estate and go sightseeing on my birthday. At the time, he said no. Later, just before he left, he said he'd consider it when he returned. I knew he had softened. My heart was filled with anticipation, waiting for his return, though ultimately it was all for naught. But it wasn't too late. I would consider today my birthday. Today, Lyra Sterling was 20 years old. Though a starved ghost, she had witnessed the splendor of this world. As I gazed at this capital city, now under Caspian's rule, a sudden commotion arose. I looked down and saw a disabled beggar desperately clinging to Ilara's leg, shouting something, his face filled with endless hatred. Lyra frantically ordered people to drag the beggar away, but Caspian, intrigued, stopped them. Soon the situation became clear. This disabled beggar was Arthur, the scholar Lyra had married. After Lyra saw Caspian again that year and couldn't forget him, she had first tried to kill Arthur, but to her surprise, Arthur, with great tenacity, didn't die. Then he begged his way all to the capital, but he didn't know which family Lyra belonged to. He could only search the streets, and today he had finally found her. Thus the truth was revealed. Chapter 8. The rain stopped, and the sun shone over the entire capital. I whispered thank you into Caspian's ear and asked him to cremate me, not bury me in the earth. Though he couldn't hear. I watched him carry me farther and farther away. Finally I shouted, Caspian, if you ever fall in love again, don't scare her anymore, tell her earlier. A gust of wind blew, and the brass bells on the eaves of a small building chimed crisply. I saw Caspian suddenly turn his head. He looked into the wind, searching for me, but ultimately he did not see me. I turned and floated to the pear tree, seeing it filled with blossoms. A sweet little girl was sitting under the pear tree. I asked her who she was waiting for. The little girl with a soft, childlike voice said, "Mama, I'm waiting for you." I froze, her eyes and brows resembled mine and also Caspian. Perhaps this was our child. Or perhaps this was me. The little me who sat under the pear blossoms every day, longing for her mother to come. I smiled at her, took her hand. "I'm here, let's go." She immediately gripped my hand tightly. "Mama, where are we going?" Pear blossoms bloomed in vast swathes. I held the little girl's hand and saw a beautiful river. Many people were by the river, queuing to walk forward. At the front of the line was a place filled with warmth. Just as I was nearing that warmth, I heard Caspian's voice, "Lyra Sterling." I turned my head and saw him walking across the river. He wore the dark robe I most liked to see him in, his high, tied hair fluttering in the wind. He came before me and the child and said, "Before I called you, but you never answered me. It turns out I had the wrong name. Lyra, I'm glad I wasn't too late." I thought he had entered another dream, that his dream had crossed into reality. But I saw behind him countless soldiers, also crossing the river, bloody, missing limbs. He, too, had fallen in battle. Then he picked up the child and naturally took my hand. "Let's go, father and mother are us ahead." I looked forward, I saw many people waving to us. I also saw Nanny Eliza, but she was angry with me. "Lyra, I prayed to the gods for so long for live 100 years, why did you come so soon?" I finally remembered. At the moment of my death I heard a voice. "Give her a little more Tim." Nanny prayed every day for her protection. She must at least see her revenge fulfilled. So I had lingered as a spirit, not because Ilara had used some dark magic. It was Nanny Eliza, she had prayed for it for me in life. "Mother," I called out to her. She was the one who raised me, who named me, who taught me to survive and live, who pray the gods for my protection and who waited for me. She was my mother. Nanny Eliza cried, then laughed. The wind picked up again, and pear blossoms danced in the air like snow. Grass green and orioles singing across the fields, the moon white, the wind clear and pear blossoms dancing. Lyra, let's go. The end. And that's a wrap on today's reading here at Booked for Drama. If you felt anything, rage, swoon, second-hand heartbreak, let me know in the comments. Don't forget to like, subscribe and share with your fellow drama lovers. If you have any requests, drop them in the comments. Until next time, keep reading and keep the drama on the page.